Welcome everyone to the 2020 APAC Groundbreakers Virtual Tour by Apaco UC. This year, our event will be the biggest one ever done with 174 sessions, including normal sessions, workshops, and hands-on labs from 123 different speakers over 11 days. Also, it will cover sessions on 4 different languages. Please remember to register to as many sessions you can, and all sessions will be available for replay as many times as you want for 2 weeks after the initial session date and time. You can also interact with the speaker at many times during that 2 weeks by posting questions or comments directly on the playback session page. I would like to say thanks to our Oracle user groups and Java user groups that made this event possible, and also to our sponsors, Oracle Groundbreakers and CloudDB. Now for today's session, Agile Development and Delivery for the Oracle Cloud by Shay Shmeltzer. I would like to say that please feel free to write questions at any time during the session by using the Q&A tab of the Zoom webinar, and Shay will be answering our questions at the end of the session. If any issues during the presentation, please feel free to contact me at any time by using the chat option of Zoom webinar. Just to make that easier, any questions to the speaker, please use the Q&A option, and Shay will be answering them at the end. And any issues, technical issues of anything that you need me as moderator to be involved, please use the chat option or Zoom webinar. Now, without any more delays, I would like to leave you with this amazing session by Shay Shmeltzer. Thank you so much, Shay. I'm just stopping sharing, and you can now share your screen, and I will put myself in mute.
Right. Thank you so much. All right, hey everyone. Good morning or good evening or good afternoon, whatever the time is at your location. My name is Shay Shmeltzer. I'm Director of Product Management at a group at Oracle that builds our cloud development tools. And today we're going to talk about Agile development and delivery for the Oracle Cloud. And basically, this is an introduction to how you do DevOps in the cloud using Oracle Visual Builder Studio, which is an entitlement service, basically a foundation service in the Oracle Cloud that you can leverage to help your team improve the way that you manage your development lifecycle. So the first thing we probably should do is make sure that everyone is on the same page in terms of terminology. The two concepts I'm going to cover today, the two main ones are Agile and DevOps, and you have the definitions from Wikipedia over here on the slides. The basic idea of Agile development, it's a software development methodology that emphasizes the concepts of early delivery of results to the end user. So instead of going over and doing like 2 or 3 years of development before the user gets something, Agile talks about delivering artifacts to the customer much quicker, right, in a faster pace. They are also talking about continual improvement. So you're not going to deliver all the system very quickly. You're going to deliver the most important parts of the system first, and then incrementally you're going to add more functionality on top of it, adjusting all the time based on the priorities of the user. Okay, so the user is going to give you feedback on what you just gave them. They're going to potentially change their priority, tell you what is more important for them. And you need to be flexible enough to be able to respond to those changes and deliver the next iteration of the software and run through this kind of cycle of delivery very frequently. Usually in Agile development, we're talking about deliveries that are done in sprints, that are development processes that the default is 2 weeks, but people change it. Some people do it in a shorter development time. Some people extend it a little bit. But the idea is try and respond to requirement quickly. DevOps is also a methodology. As you can see from the definition, they talk about a cultural movement and a practice. But at the end of the day, what it aims to do is provide an environment that allows you to build, test, and release software rapidly, frequently, and reliably. And you can see how the same adjectives are being used both to describe Agile and DevOps in terms of doing things in a rapid way, in a frequent way, and in a reliable way. So basically give people software that actually works. Okay, and the way we look at it, DevOps, which is the infrastructure that you put in place, is an essential thing to have in order to enable you to do agile delivery of or implement agile methodology of your software. So the idea is that if you have DevOps in place, and DevOps tries to automate as much as possible from your development cycle, you'll be able to do agile development and deliver stuff to your customer. And the way that we do it inside Oracle, inside the Oracle development team, and also the way that we offer our customers to do it, is through a cloud service called the Oracle Visual Builder Studio service. Okay? Up until a couple of months ago, this was actually known as the Oracle Developer Cloud Service. We just renamed the service to align with some of the additional functionality we added to it in the latest releases, and we might actually show you that later on as well. But at the end of the day, what Visual Builder Studio gives you is an integrated development platform to do agile collaborative development among your development team, manage versions of your code, and provide continuous delivery automation. That's the ability to take your code from being in a code version management repository all the way to being deployed and accessible for the customer in a smooth, automated way. Okay, and all of this is provided in a single interface that integrates all of those stages of the life cycle into one place. And usually when we talk about the life cycle, the DevOps life cycle, we're talking about this circle that you're seeing on the right side, where we're talking about a stage of planning what we're going to do. Then there's a stage of actually coding the application, building it. Building might be, for example, picking up all our dependencies on third-party libraries, bringing them together, connecting everything, resolving all the dependencies and generating the artifacts. Then we can also automate tests of our software, and then we release it and deploy it onto various platforms. Now, again, deployment can be deployment to production, but probably before that, you would want to do things like deploy into a test environment, deploy into a QA environment, or maybe deploy some artifacts into another development environment that depends on things that you produce. Okay. And the idea is to run through this cycle as quickly as possible, and to allow you to run through it faster, we are trying to automate as much as possible from this cycle. So inside Visual Builder Studio, you're going to get functionality that is divided into two parts. One part talk about managing your development team. And what we have there is we have an issue tracking system, agile dashboards that allow you to plan what you're going to do, all sorts of graphs and reports that help you track your development sprints, and the ability to create wiki pages, upload documents to them, and basically share information across your team. And then on the other side, we also manage your code. And what we give you there is Git-based repositories to host your code. We allow you to do peer code review on the code over there, give each other feedback on the code, and then automate the whole continuous integration, continuous delivery of your application and continuous deployment through pipelines that basically take your code and deploy them. Now, you can see that the last part is the CI/CD pipeline is the one that has a little asterisk above it. And that's because all the other functionality that I mentioned over here is actually available for you for free. If you're an Oracle Cloud, if you have an Oracle Cloud account, if you have a UCM account, basically, you are entitled to spin up Oracle Visual Builder Studio, spin up an instance, and use all the functionality up until the little asterisk for free. Okay, it's what we call a foundation service. It comes as an entitlement to anyone who has an Oracle Cloud account. The CI/CD functionality requires the usage of Oracle Compute and Storage. Okay, and once you point us to your Compute and Storage account, we can basically automate the process of deployment by using a compute instance to package your application, run a bunch of processes on top of it, generate the artifacts into storage, and then deploy them. So that's the only part that might cost you money, only if you're using that functionality. And again, the cost there is very minimal. It's the cost of compute and storage, which is very cheap on the Oracle Cloud. right, so let's talk a little bit in more details about each one of the points over here, and then I want to show you a demo of how you actually go about doing this whole cycle in a kind of a day in the life of a development team. So for the plan stage of DevOps, what we offer you is an issue tracking system in the cloud. Issue tracking is something where you can document all your to-do items. So instead of just managing it on a notepad or in some Excel spreadsheet, it's actually an online system accessible from the web, also accessible through REST interfaces, where you can document all your to-dos. You can assign them to people, prioritize them, estimate how long they're going to take, have dependency between items that you need to do, and basically help you manage your workload. Okay, and this is something that is similar in concept to things like Jira or Bugzilla that you might be familiar with, but it's an Oracle implementation. Once you have all those issues in the system, you can then allocate them to Agile dashboards. We work with both Scrum and Kanban-based dashboards that you can use to manage your development process. And then you can manage your development sprint, tracking your sprints through a collection of charts and reports that help you verify that you're achieving your key performance indicators while you're developing in your team environment. And then, as we mentioned, we also have a wiki platform in there. You can choose your markup language for the wiki, and then in there you can put all your design documents, best practices, summaries of meeting, discussions on features, anything else that you need, you can basically upload and create wiki pages there to share information across your team members. Now that you know what you need to do, the next step is to actually do it and code it. And there you're going to use whatever development tool you want. What we provide you is a Git repository where you can host your code. I'm assuming everyone is familiar with Git. Today it's the most frequently used, most popular version management system out there. Any development tool today has Git integration built into it, and from any development tool, you'll be able to check code into the Git repositories in the Oracle Cloud that we provide you in Visual Builder Studio. Note that those are private Git repositories. They are only accessible for people in your team. You have full control over who can access each Git repository and also who can actually check code into those Git repositories. People who don't have the user that you don't get the entitlement for you won't be able to look at your code. This is not GitHub. This is private Git repositories that only your organization and people in your organization will be able to access. In those Git repositories, you can manage any type of file. Okay, so whether it's your Java code or Node.js code or JavaScript code or PL/SQL code or Oracle Forms code or anything else that you want to load into those Git repositories, we don't care. It's just there to host your files. We also have support for large file with LFS support built into those Git repositories. When your code is in the Git repository, you can also do operations like branching, merging, of course, to manage the development cycle, maybe work with the Git flow concepts of managing new features in branches and then merging them into the main line of code. In your merge process, we can also execute code review processes by your peers. So for example, when someone does changes, he can ask other people in the organization to look at the changes he did, give him comments on the code. This can be very useful, for example, if you have junior developers who need their code to be reviewed by maybe their manager, maybe by more experienced peers in their team. They can just look at the code, give them feedback, and they can have this kind of discussion on the code, making sure that the code is in great shape. Once your code is ready to be deployed, we can automate the build process. And what we do here is we basically leverage or provide you the ability to leverage multiple types of build frameworks. All the popular ones that are out there, whether it's Maven or Gradle or Ant, all of those are very popular with Java developers, for example, NPM if you're using Node.js modules, Grunt, Bower, Gulp if you're packaging, for example, JavaScript UIs, SQL CL if you need to run part of your build process might be to create objects in a database. So we give you the SQL command line to work against Oracle databases in the cloud, for example. We also have Oracle specific things like Oracle JDeveloper, the SOA suite, and Oracle Forms in there. If you need to use their utilities for packaging application, we also support Project FN and the whole serverless approach with functions that Oracle provides. And of course, you can always run shell scripts as part of your build process. Okay, and again, things like Maven, for example, are not limited to Java. There's Maven tasks for building SOA. There's Maven tasks to running SQL utilities, etc. Those are all, again, not Oracle inventions. Those are all things that are popular out there, and we just let you leverage them and use the frameworks that you're already familiar with inside our cloud. We also support Docker, Kubernetes, Terraform, and the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure command line interface if you need to do things like spin up environments in the Oracle Compute, set up your network. You can basically run your Terraform scripts to define your whole environments. You can then spin up Docker images, deploy them to Kubernetes cluster, and automate all of this as part of Visual Builder Studio. Another part of the automation here is test automation. We have support both for backend testing using JUnit and all sorts of other frameworks that you can install like Mocha and Lint and things like that. We also have support for UI testing using Selenium that is built into our build servers, so you can test your web application and make sure that they are correctly functioning. Another thing that you can do is you can run code audits where we integrate, for example, with SonarQube to run static code analysis on your code base to make sure that it complies with your coding standards. Okay. And another thing that we're able to do is let you know about vulnerabilities that might be introduced into your code by your usage of third-party libraries. Today, almost every project out there is using third-party libraries as part of the project. You're relying on frameworks to do a lot of things, whether it's jQuery or Node.js packages or Java libraries that you're picking from somewhere, whether it's Struts or Spring or anything else. Your code relies on that. The problem is that in those libraries that are not developed by you, there might be some security holes, okay? And those security holes keep being found by all sorts of analysts in the market. And it's very hard for organizations to keep up to speed with all those vulnerabilities that have been identified in the libraries, okay? And this is a very dangerous situation because if you're not keeping up on top of this, you might be using a library with a non-vulnerability that would allow a hacker to go into your system, for example, and modify things and break things. So our vulnerability analyzer is actually able to scan your code, whether it's, again, based on Maven or Gradle or NPM as a build framework, and let you know if you're using a library that has vulnerability in it, and it can even help you fix those issues by recommending which version of the library you should be using instead of the one that you're using, and going through the process of modifying the files in your code to make sure that you're on the latest version of the library, or at least a version that doesn't have the security issue you're running into. And again, think about this as this is something you can automate on top of your existing application and your code. Then we go into the release and deployment. And again, we can deploy into various locations, whether it's taking your Java code and putting it in a WebLogic instance, or taking your SQL script and deploying it to a database, or deploying your SOA processes, or just deploying Docker images or functions or anything else into the Oracle Cloud, all as part of a pipeline. And I'm going to show you how to do it as part of the demo, which is what we're doing next. All right, so I'm gonna go into Visual Builder Studio, okay? And I'm gonna be two people in this demo. I'm gonna start as Jeff. This is the guy with the bird over here. And when you go into Visual Builder Studio, this is a cloud service. By the way, it's not a product that Oracle had before the cloud. This is a product that was built for the cloud. We don't have an on-premise version of it. It's only cloud available. And all you need in order to access it is a browser, which is what I have here. When you go in, you get a list of all the projects that you're a part of. As you can see, Jeff is a very busy guy, and he can look up one of the projects and go into the project, which takes him to the project homepage. In the project homepage, the first thing that I'll see here is a list of the environments that I have, and then I will see my recent activities. This is not just my activities. Those are all the activities in our project done by any one of my team members. And you can see, for example, in this project, we have 4 members of the team. Each one can have a different role. Each one can have different privileges about what they can do inside the project. Over here in the recent activity, I can see exactly what happened in my project over the last several days, weeks. It all depends on how long I'm willing to scroll down. This is just like your Facebook feed, but it's for work-related items. Okay, so this is what is really interesting to you guys. For example, over here, I can see that the last thing that happened today is that we had a build job called test that failed. Okay, the little red indication over here tells me our tests have failed. Okay, this ran today at 10 in the morning. I can go over and look at the test build job, and I can see what exactly happened over here. Okay, so let's go into the last run 31, and look at our test results. And I can see over here that we have one test that failed. Okay, this is using JUnit reporting format, and I can see exactly what failed. Okay, so in my demo, I'm going to use a very simple example. I'm going to use a hello world example, but it would just show you exactly the concepts. Okay, so think about it in a larger context. But right now we have an error right here. We have a failure. We were expecting to get a message that says hello there world, but we just got hello world. Okay, so that's our error. This is the issue. By the way, the system is running and deployed over here. This is running on an Oracle Compute instance. It's a Java Helidon function over here. And if I'll go over and I'll just invoke this, for example, I'll pass in Shay as a parameter, you would see the message that I get back is hello Shay. And this is the problem. I'm supposed to get hello there Shay. Okay, this is what the function is supposed to be doing. So me as Jeff, I just identified the error. Okay, I'm going to request, Jeff is the project manager, he's going to request the developer to fix it. Okay, and in order to do that, he's going to tag and create a new issue in our issue tracking system. Again, I'm still inside Visual Builder Studio, working in the issues area right now, and I'm going to report a new issue. Okay, a failure of test of message, need to say hello there. Okay, and then I can say, okay, is this a new task? Is this a new feature? If I'm working with Agile methodology, I can talk about epics and stories inside this epic, or I can just say, okay, this is a new bug. I can indicate the severity of this, what's the priority. This is a high priority item for us. It's stopping us from doing everything else because our tests are failing. Then I can say which part of our project this is in. Is it a database issue? Is it a UI issue? Okay, and you can see that for each issue, I have a different owner. This specifically is in our Helidon Java layer. So this is going to be assigned to Shay. Now, those lists are lists that you can customize per project. So you can define the components in your project, the versions, the releases in your project. All of this is completely in your control. Okay. And then you can say, when is it due? Okay, maybe this is due today. How long it's going to take to fix it, your estimate, or you can also estimate things with Agile points. Agile points is basically a Fibonacci a set of numbers that indicate complexity. Okay, so I'm going to estimate this is as a 3 in terms of complexity. And I just documented issue 201 in our system, assigned it to Shay, and this is now part of our open issues over here. Okay. Now, the other thing that we can do from Visual Builder Studio as a project manager is manage our development team and our development sprint. So right now we're not doing any development sprint. So let's start a new development sprint. We'll call this one the October 27 sprint. Okay, we're going to try and solve 12 points of complexities, and this is our next development sprint. And now we have our backlog, all our open issues, and I can start to move them from our backlog into the current development sprint. So I'm bringing in the high priority item, the ones with the red flag. Maybe we'll also try and handle this issue, and let's bring in also this issue. Okay. By the way, if I'm bringing in too many issues, I'll get a warning over here. Hey, you already took 13 points of complexity. You were aiming for 12, and I can decide, for example, if I'm really interested, I can still keep it in here. Okay, so this is how I define what's going to be in my development sprint. Okay, and then I can start our development sprint, again, indicate from when until when it's going to run. And now that we're running our development sprint, I can look at our active sprint and see exactly the status of each task and who is assigned to this task. Okay, what is the status right now? And if something changes, if I know, for example, that Shay is going to work on issue 201, I can move it to be in the in progress column. And again, you can customize the columns that you're seeing over here. You can also see a bunch of reports on your progress. We have a bunch of charts here that show you your progress. We just started our development, so we're at the top right now. In 2 weeks from now, we're supposed to be with 0 issues opened over here. We can see all sorts of cumulative reports and control charts and history of our sprint runs. All of this is available in here as part of our board and agile management aspect for the team manager. Okay. So far I worked as Jeff, the manager of the team. Now I'm going to switch over to look at it from the perspective of Shay, who's one of the developers. I'm working in the same project. I'm just doing a refresh over here to see what was the latest thing that was added to my project. And I can see that Jeff assigned or created defect 201 and then assigned it to me. I can also go, by the way, to my issue tracking system. Over here, by the way, I can define advanced searches and I can create my own searches. For example, over here, I have all the issues that are assigned to me and are still not resolved. Okay, and I can see, for example, issue 201 over here. I can go in, I can read what I need to do, and I can provide more things over here. I can do attachment. I can give comments. For example, I can say, working on this today. Okay, and add this comment over here. And when I do this, by the way, if I switch back to Jeff's view of the project, if he goes back to his project home, he would say, oh, Shay is working on this today. We're on the road to resolving the issue. All right, so me as a developer, back as Shay, I need to figure out where the issue is. So all my code is inside my Git repositories. I actually have multiple Git repositories in this project. Some of them are for my JSF web UI. Some of them are for my functions that I created over here, my Helidon code over here, which is just a Java project built with Maven. It's serverless Java solution. You might want to read more about Helidon if you're into that type of things. But for the sake of right now, just know that I have a bunch of Java code over here that basically does all my logic and gives me my hello world message. Okay. Now I know the issue has to do with the hello message. So let me search in my code repository for where is this hello world. Okay. And then I can find all the places where this is mentioned. So this is one of the nice things about having my code inside my Git repository. The other thing that is nice is that I can use the Git functionality to do things. Oops, my session just expired, so let me log in again. I can use my Git functionality over here to do things like branch and merge my code. So if I'm working in my Git repository, I can say I need to do changes, and the changes are going to be done. So let's call this branch 201 because we're trying to resolve issue 201. Okay, so now I have a branch of my code. This is my own little copy. And what I can do now is I can check it out into my development environments. Okay, so if I'm working with Visual Studio, for example, I can open the code over there, Eclipse, SQL Developer, any of those tools would have this capability. I'm going to show you another way that I can modify my code, which is directly go to the code in the browser. So this is actually the file that can help me fix the message, because over here, this is the default message, hello. And we said this is supposed to say hello there. So I'm going to edit this code directly inside my browser. I'm going to add the there method over there, and I'm going to commit this. Fix for issue 201. Okay, changed message. And I commit my code. Now I commit my code into my branch. Okay, now I can go over and run some tests on my branch. Once I'm happy with the results, I'm gonna request a merge. So in the merge, I want to take in my Helidon repository, I want to push into the master branch the changes I did in branch 201. Okay, and then I can say this is regarding defect 201 that I'm trying to resolve. And I can add reviewers. I can say, I want Jeff to approve my code. Let me add myself as a reviewer as well. I can, by the way, have build jobs that would run as part of the review. For example, maybe they are doing some testing. Can add some description over here and create the merge request. Okay. So this is going to send an email to Jeff telling him, hey, you have a new merge request. He can go and read the email, or he can just go into his view. Again, I'm now Jeff, go into merge request. I can see the request to review the changes. I can see what was written to me. I can see it's related to defect 201. So I can click on it and read what was the defect if I don't remember it, even though I just filed it 2 minutes ago. Then I can go back and I can see what exactly did we change, which files were changed, exactly the code changes. I can give comments on the code. For example, I can say, looks okay, and send a comment. When I give a comment, Shay is going to get again an email if he wants to, or we can just go over here and look at the comments that Jeff gave him on this line of code. Okay. So this is a way for us to kind of go over our code and do code review in a team way. Okay. Once Jeff is happy with the result, maybe he says this works okay, he can basically execute a merge, taking my changes from the branch and bringing them into our main line of code. This is merge. Okay. So now our main line of code has those changes. Okay. And what you would see here when I'm going into the build area is that we have a test build that just started now. Okay. And this happened automatically. So let me show you why. We'll go into the definition of this test build job. So this is part of our CI/CD pipeline. This is our taking the code and running a bunch of tests on it. Okay. And you can see this is hooked up to our Git repository, to the master branch, and is going to be invoked each time that someone changes something in our line of code, in our master branch. Once they do the change, we're going to do a step here that is running our test. I'm using Maven here, but again, in the steps here, you can use Ant and Gradle and Maven, or just write some Unix shell script that would do something. You can add a step, for example, over here that would run some SQL command and would connect to a database. It can be an ATP database, another database in the cloud. You can use wallets over here and just run a SQL file or run some inline SQL commands. Okay. You can add things that would do Node.js operation or OCI operation, or again, Docker operation, function operation, a bunch of things that you can do here. Okay. By the way, there's another step that runs before this, which is doing our dependency vulnerability analyzer. This is going to run and check our code for vulnerabilities. Right now, I'm not failing the results, but I'm going to just report them without failing the build. There are other things you can do. For example, in after build, I can store my artifacts, store my test results, run SonarQube, do a bunch of other things over here. And we can see this is right now progressing. We can actually look at the log and see this happening live over here. And in fact, we can see this just successfully completed, okay, 2 minutes ago. And if we now go to the build, we can see 2 other builds that are now running parallel. Now, the reason that they are running now is because we are actually part of a pipeline, okay? You can see this is right now happening, a live demo. You can see we have multiple steps over here. First, we run the test. If the test is succeeding, we are actually publishing a Docker image into 2 repositories. One of them is in Docker So if we go into this build job, for example, this is the Docker Hub build job. Let me show you the configuration over here. This one takes our code from the Git repository and use a bunch of Docker steps to log in into Docker Hub, build our image, and then push it into Docker Hub. So once this job finished, which it just did right now, I can go over to Docker Hub, okay, log in into my account, okay, and you would see that a minute ago we pushed in this image, okay. So this is live happening right now. We're continuing to run our build pipeline. So after we ran the publishing, okay, this can also publish, by the way, to the Oracle Docker repository. We then created a jar file and we deployed it to our runtime environment. So this is our runtime environment. Remember the message over here was hello, Shay. If we now do a refresh over here, it's now saying hello there, Shay. So the issue is resolved. Our live system has been updated and we resolved the issue that started this whole process. Now, the nice thing is that all of this is trackable from one place, okay? If I go to my project home and I look at my activities today, I can see the whole flow. It started with a test that failed, okay? And then we went over, we documented a new issue in our issue tracking system, assigned to Shay. Shay started working on it, created a branch of the code, did changes in the code. We can see exactly what the changes were. We did a code review system. We gave him some comments. Then we approved it. We merged it into master. This started up a set of build jobs, okay, that took our code all the way and deployed it to our instance. And now we have the correct version. We can also track it, of course, from our boards where we can see our status and we can see that issue 201 is now resolved. It's part of our completed things, and we can free ourselves to work on the rest of the stuff over here. So this is kind of the complete end-to-end flow of a simple application. And again, I showed you this context of doing it with Java. I wanted to show you one more thing, by the way, as part of our test jobs over here. I told you we do vulnerability analyzer. We can see, for example, if we go over here, the vulnerabilities that we identified in the libraries that are being used. For example, I can see there's a high vulnerability in this library over here, the netted transport library. Can go all the way exactly what the vulnerability is, go over, get the report. This one is coming from the National Vulnerability Database. I can see the issue, what's reported, can even see when it's fixed, if it's fixed. And then Visual Builder Studio can help you resolve the issue. If you actually click resolve, we can say, okay, you have a problem here because you're using this version of the library. We recommend that you use version 3.0, and then we can go over and go through a complete flow of fixing those things in your code, fixing your dependencies to use the right library. All right. So this was a very quick demo of Visual Builder Studio and how you can basically do the complete development cycle from issue recognition, okay, through code changes, code review, and automating testing, automating building, automating deployment of your application in one simple interface. Okay. Wanted to go back and summarize what we saw today. I showed you a demo of Visual Builder Studio. Again, a free or mostly free cloud service that you can spin up in your Oracle Cloud environment, and which will provide you with an integrated DevOps and Agile platform for your development team. Now, I showed you the end-to-end flow, but you don't have to use everything. Some people use parts of it. Some people just use the Git repositories. Some people actually use external Git repositories, and we can leverage them inside Visual Builder. If you're in your project, and inside your project preferences, we can map to an external Git repository, maybe something, for example, on GitHub, okay, and we can pick your code from there and then run the CI/CD inside Visual Builder Studio. Some people don't want to do CI/CD, they just want to track issues. So you need an issue prioritization system, something that would allow you to track all the things that you've been working on, something that would allow you to do advanced queries on those issues and prioritize them and then manage them in boards. You can just use this functionality. But the great solution is when you're using everything end to end and everything is integrated, because you can actually track your activity all the way from if a build broke, you can see the code changes that caused this build to run. You can see who issued those code changes, what was the issue, and then which issue in the system they were trying to resolve. Okay. So this is Visual Builder Studio. It's for any type of application. I showed you this on Edge application. I have demos that you can find on the web, for example, for how to use this to manage SQL in your database and creating packages and tables and populating data. I have demos that show how to use this for Docker images and other things. Just look up DevOps for technology with the word Oracle next to it, and you're likely to find those demos. What we would love you to do is actually try it out. If you have an Oracle Cloud account, go ahead, spin up an instance of Visual Builder Studio and give it a try. Again, no cost for you. If you're not doing the CI/CD, the rest of the stuff would be free. That's what I wanted to share with slides. Let me see if we have any questions that people have in our Q&A. Feel free to write them up over there if you want right now. I don't see any questions so far. Hopefully this has been clear. If you have any further questions that you think about later on, we have a community forum where if you basically go into the product, it's inside our help menu over there. Yes.
Yep. Shay, thank you so much. I cannot see any questions in the Q&A also. That means during the next couple of weeks, the replay of this session will be available in the conference replay session. And this session will be a dedicated page where everyone, if you also have any questions or comments, can feel free to post your questions on the page, and Shay will be notified. Of course, he will be able to reply on his convenience. Saying that, thank you so much, Shay, for our amazing session. And I just see something coming in chat. Oh, thanks, Shay. Great too. No problem. That means thank you so much. And thank you so much, everyone. And please enjoy the conference and have a wonderful day, Shay.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye-bye.